This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media, sponsors of the 2024 Natural Resources Investment Symposium, July 7 through 11 in Boca Raton, Florida, or via live stream from the comfort and convenience of your own home. Whether you attend in person or online, remember that we're going to give you between 50 and 60 hours of very intense programming over 4 days, more than you can possibly absorb in the time allotted. To that end, the whole conference, including the breakout sessions, will be recorded, and you'll have the ability to revisit the conference time and time again, which you will need to do. Further to that end, before the conference, I will interview every CEO and every presenter at the conference, which will give you the opportunity to learn about the exhibitors before you show up at the conference, even give you the ability to contact the exhibitors and visit with them before the conference, either by telephone or online. Further, understand that every exhibitor at this conference, every public company exhibitor, including Radius, who we're about to speak to, is owned in accounts which are owned and or managed by myself. While my ownership does not sadly guarantee that a stock goes up, it is your guarantee, that unlike every other investment conference that I know of on the planet, every single public company exhibitor has been vetted by myself, the conference sponsors. And now let's get on with the interview. Simon,
Hi,
welcome.
Rick.
First of all, to the interview, and thank you for 3 decades of working on behalf of natural resources investors, particularly one named Rick Rule. I appreciate that.
I've been happy to be with you for 3 decades. Thank you for that vetting and approval.
So let's go back over 3 decades and tell us something about your background. Tell us something about your past successes and how they qualify you to be at the conference as an expert on exploration, prospect generation, and capital markets.
Yeah, well, I've been a prospector since the mid '80s. I got the gold bug up in the Dawson City when I lived there, and then followed that bug down to where the activity was in Latin America when the first gold rush started in Venezuela, and then following that, then I remember all those years when I was in Venezuela, flying back up to the Vancouver, where the companies are usually located, based, flying over Central America and seeing all those volcanoes. And, one of the benefits of Venezuela was there's a lot of gold there. One of the negatives was it was all saprolite. So I love mountains. So the mountains and the volcanoes of Central America attracted me then. And after Venezuela, I went to Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and I've had quite a bit of success in that region finding gold deposits and silver deposits.
Finding and
Started
selling
out in
them.
Honduras. Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
Finding and selling them, in fact.
Finding and selling them, yes,
Yes.
for the most part. I mean, with Fortuna Silver, I did found Fortuna Silver and, chairman of a mining company for a while, thanks to the skills of a certain Jorge Ganosa, who used to work for me as a geo and then persuaded me to start a silver company with him, which is now, multi-billion-dollar plus New York listed silver mining company, or gold mining company, actually now, more than silver. But for the most part, I like the process of discovery, especially when you make one.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. You've been with Radius a long time, generated an awful lot of third-party expenditure.
Yeah.
Tell us something about what Radius is involved in today and what the investment highlights are before we drill down into it.
Okay. So Radius at the present time has got 3 joint ventures. One in Mexico with Pan American Silver. We made a discovery there called the Amali discovery, which Pan America has earned into. It's now 65 Pan American and 35 Radius. Although we may be earning back into that again because they've been quite distracted since their merger with Yamana. So I think at the present time, Radius will propose a budget where we will earn back into some of that 65% that they own. We have a second joint venture with another very large silver producer, Fresnillo. They will be drilling in the next 2 weeks on another discovery we made called Plata Verde, which is a very interesting old silver mine that with no historic records about that we discovered in the middle of the Mexican desert. We'll be drilling that in a few weeks with Fresnillo's money. And in Guatemala, we have a joint venture with a company called Volcanic Gold, which I also founded. It really started in after the discovery of Cerro Blanco and selling the company. I went back to Guatemala a few years later with Radius, and that's where Radius was born, basically, working in Guatemala. And then the politics changed in the country, so Radius pulled out and went to Mexico, where we made a number of discoveries. But for the years I was out of Guatemala, I retained all the properties and applications I had there. So when Guatemala became, at least verbally, pro-mining again, I moved back into the country by Volcanic optioned or acquired a right to Radius's prospects by spending, the deal was to spend $7 million US over a 4-year period to earn into Radius's prospects there, and earning to 60% of it. So we've just about earned that 60% now. So I'll talk more as Pan American and Fresnillo are running into those projects. I've been working with Volcanic, earning into Radius's prospects in Guatemala. We made 2 discoveries. One is the Holly discovery. It's about presently, I've stopped drilling it at the present time. It's about 40 kilometers from an earlier discovery of mine called Cerro Blanco, which is owned by a company called Bluestone, the Lundin Group. They've got frustrated with the process in Guatemala and put it for sale. So I put a hold on drilling this discovery Holly because it's only about 40 kilometers away. So once somebody comes in and buys the Cerro Blanco and starts building the mine there, I'll return to Holly and continue drilling. But presently, it sits at about 400,000 ounces at 9 grams. And it's about 50 kilometers along a paved road from the Cerro Blanco mine of the future. So once that mine is being built, I will return to the Holly. Meanwhile, we've another discovery that we are trying to make, I'll say. Basically, there's Guatemala's quite unique. It forms a plate boundary between the North American plate and the Caribbean plate. It runs the Motagua suture zone, runs right through the center of the country. And within that suture zone, we discovered a lot of gold in large boulders in float, and I think in places in situ. But and one of those discoveries was called the Miller Prospect. That's a granted concession. We've been drilling on. So we really thought we understood where the gold was coming from, and we drilled that and put out some results a couple of weeks ago. Actually, the veins we hit didn't have gold in them. So now we're re-drilling the opposite direction, and we're finding that the south dipping veins may be the origin of those veins. So it's a very exciting project. It's like a 25-kilometer long belt with visible gold in many places all along it, multi-ounce. But finding the origin of that gold is what we're at the moment.
You have a long history in Guatemala, Simon. Perhaps you could talk about the mineral endowment in northern Guatemala, in particular the silver endowment, that gigantic deposit. As I recall, at the very beginning of that deposit's genesis, you had something to do with it.
It is. That's one of the ones I didn't. Yeah, it's basically Escobal silver deposit. We found the vein, and when I sold Cerro Blanco to a company that was then called Glamis Gold, which became Goldcorp, that prospect went with it, and Goldcorp drilled it and made a much, a significant discovery. I think it's about 350 million ounces of silver, very high grade, some lead and zinc with that also. Unfortunately, due to the politics in Guatemala, when we pulled out of the country, it has been on standby now for 7 years. It's a very, very rich and very profitable mine. It is now owned by Pan American Silver, and I think they're going through the process to get it back into production. But Guatemala's got amazing gold and silver endowment. Politically, it's really not sure if it wants mining or not. It flips and flops for government changing. And recently, unfortunately, in the last month, the Minister of the Environment changed, and she came out with some very negative comments about mining in her initial introduction to the public. She's since backed off that a little bit, and there is a lot of conversations going on within the government. It is a new government that came into power in January of this year. They got into power by talking about the importance of employment and how a lack of employment was a significant problem for the country. So I really think that if the dust settles, mining can create a lot of employment in the country, because I believe the mineral endowment of Guatemala is significant. And that's why I've had such success there historically.
Simon, you've had a lot of success in volcanic and volcanogenic terrains in Latin America. Tell us, if you can, from memory, the approximate market capitalization of Radius. In other words, how much do you pay for all of this benefit and all this experience?
Right. At the present time, Radius is trading with a market cap of something less than $8 million, based upon the fact that the drill holes we put in at this Motagua Norte, we didn't find the gold yet, but we will. It didn't drop from the sky. And we have two joint ventures that will be ongoing. Beside the one with Volcanic, we got the Pan American and the one with Fresnillo, the drilling will start in a couple of weeks on the Fresnillo project.
Which means that you have interests in two discoveries, which may or may not become economic, and in an exploration machine that's been working for 30 years. And you pay $6 million Canadian net of cash and securities for all of that benefit. Is that the correct arithmetic?
That is the correct arithmetic. It is a very, very cheap exploration play at the moment, with ounces in the ground. As I've said, right. Ounces in the ground at Amalia and at Holly.
And ounces that are recognized by third parties, experienced third parties, like
Correct.
Pan American.
Like Pan American, yeah.
So, Simon, if our attendees want to learn more about Radius, who do they contact, and how do they reach that person?
Well, the best person to contact is me. I love talking about my discoveries, the ones I'm making and the ones I will make. I can be reached on my cell phone, 604-375-8119, or through my office, 604-801-5432, or obviously through the website, radiusgold.com.
Simon, thank you for 3 decades of toil on behalf of natural resource investors, particularly me. And thank you, too, for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look forward to hosting you in Boca Raton.
I look forward to seeing you there. Okay. Thank you very much.